What is going on, Av Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about 4 more things that you should always be doing when intermittent fasting. Back in June of 2019, I talked about 5 things you should always do when intermittent fasting, and I want to add to that list. These are things that if you're not doing it, then who actually are you when it comes to intermittent fasting? Just kidding. But these are essential things that will help you throughout your intermittent fasting journey. Now let's go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Guys, quickly before we start, this video is brought to you by yours truly, Fledge Fitness and the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. If you haven't gotten yours yet, what are you waiting for? With an ergonomic design, aluminum handle, and swivel design, you can't go wrong with the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. Only $16.50. You can click on the top right hand corner of this video or down in the description box below. And of course, in advance, and as always guys, thank you for your support. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video. So now we're going to jump into the first thing that you should always be doing, continuing the list from last year, starting with something that relates to the first time you even start to do intermittent fasting. You automatically want to start off small. Now I know a lot of people dive headfirst into intermittent fasting and do the warrior diet, 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating, or even OMAD, or even alternate day fasting, just instantly, immediately. You need to go through a kind of adjustment curve that has to happen because of your eating schedule. Now, this is where the whole you're starving yourself and why you're starving yourself argument comes into play, because biologically you're not even close to starving yourself. What starving actually means is that you're close to death because you are at a low body fat percentage and you haven't had access to food in a very long time. That's what starving is. Why people think this though is because when they first try to not eat, or many hours are passing and they haven't eaten when they normally would have eaten, they feel this ravish hunger that they cannot control. Now, they don't understand that biologically this is designed to be the case because they've built a pattern of eating. They actually get hungry at exact points throughout the day where they normally would be eating. This is because ghrelin secretion happens on a biological rhythm. So if you've constantly eaten breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you will be hungry during breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I say all of this to say this. When you do intermittent fasting, you are breaking this biological habit. You are pushing through ghrelin release. That's literally telling your brain, please go eat now. So if you go into intermittent fasting, there will be about a 2 to 3 week adjustment period. And if you can't survive this adjustment period mentally, you're going to fall off before you've even started. So the best thing to do is to start slow. Even if you're saying to yourself, I want to do that warrior diet, or if you're saying to yourself, I want to do alternate day fasting, not the modified version though, the full-blown alternate day fasting. If you say that to yourself, okay, that's the one I want to do, still pick a 16-hour fast. Start off with that. Get the flow of what it's like to break this rhythm, to break that pattern that you have. Understand how you feel during your fast, how you feel while you're eating or when you break your fast, how you feel entering your fast, mentally, physically, psychologically, all of that. Get that flow, break that habit, and then around 2 to 3 weeks, once you're comfortable with that regimen, move on to the exact intermittent fasting protocol that you want to do. This will help longevity, because if you just jump into a long intermittent fasting protocol, then it's going to be much tougher for you to adjust. Think about it. Go in slowly and then pick the protocol that you like. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Eat what you like, not what people tell you is healthy. Yes, eat the things that you want to eat. Now, of course, you need to understand calorie control and you need to understand nutritional balance and all of those things, micronutrients and macronutrients. You got to understand those kind of things and take that into account when you're eating the things that you like. Well, I'm not saying to eat as much as you like. Remember, pay attention to the wording here. Eat the things that you like, because That's super important for your longevity to any diet. You want to eat the things that you like so that you can continue to eat these things and continue to do a regimen that allows you to lose weight or maintain the weight loss that you already obtained. You look at the macronutrients it provides, the nutrition it provides, and its calories, and then you decide from there what you need to add or how much of it you can actually eat. So what you need to add to complete your nutrition for the day, and how much of it you can actually eat to ensure that you're not going above or below the calorie limit. So once you do that, you could essentially eat whatever you like. And I always drive this point home because of one thing. Our body has a certain amount of willpower when it comes to the foods that you're eating. You can change your biological habit and create a eating pattern where you're fasting and eating, but that's just a switch in how you're eating. What you're actually eating can be a little bit more difficult to adjust, especially if there's no excitement for the food that's coming. You don't want to have too many things on your plate that you need to focus on for weight loss, because it just makes it harder and harder, and your willpower will start to diminish over time. So please eat the things that you like. Control for what you're eating in terms of the nutrition, micronutrients, and calorie count, and then go from there. Don't worry too much on those full day of eating videos that people put out. Just ensure that you enjoy the things that you're eating while still getting the nutritional value for the day. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Make sure you are eating within a 6-hour range from resistance training. So what does this mean? It does not mean you eat 6 hours before or 6 hours after. It just means that you're eating within a 6-hour range before or after you work out, especially for resistance training. Now, there is a thing called protein synthesis. If you're trying to build muscle, you do need protein intake and food intake. In some instances, you do need to be at a caloric surplus, depending on how long you've been working out and how much resistance training you've done, how much muscle you've built, etc., etc. But there isn't a golden hour, as they normally used to say, where they used to tell you if you work out, you only have about an hour to fuel your muscles to ensure that you don't miss out on everything you just worked on. That's not true. Studies have been coming out showing that there are much larger grace periods, sometimes very long grace periods, because the body doesn't work in such a singular element where it's just you need the fuel right away. Your body actually takes much longer to go through all of those different processes with the tearing of the muscle tissue and the rebuilding process of the muscle tissues. So what you want to do is at least 6 hours before or any time within that 6 hours, so it could be right before you work out, or 6 hours after, or any time between those 6 hours after resistance training. So it could be an hour after, it could be right after, it can be up to 4 hours, 5 hours after, or even 6 hours after. Just keep it within that range so you can benefit from the resistance training with your daily food intake. And the final thing that you should always be doing with intermittent fasting is increase your protein intake. Whatever your protein intake is now, if you've never cared to measure any of this stuff, try to increase your protein intake. It usually isn't the most macronutrient on your plate. Believe it or not, usually carbohydrates tend to be the most macronutrients on your plate, but because of the powerful elements of protein, that specific macronutrients, because of its high thermic effect when you're eating protein, it helps your skin, your organs, especially your muscles. It can transfer into amino acids. On top of all of that, it's satiating, so you actually can feel satisfied and fulfilled when there's more protein on your plate. And it definitely helps with things like muscle growth, which is important because lean mass is the primary driver for your metabolic rate. So you want to keep as much muscle mass as you can, or increase it, even while doing things like intermittent fasting. But keep in mind, guys, if you are a new person to going to the gym, or if you've gone back to the gym after a long time, you can build muscle and lose body fat at the same time. The more heavier focus on building muscle, where you have to be at a caloric surplus, are for those who've been training for a good amount of time. So just keep that in mind. If you're ever trying to build muscle, you can at the same time build muscle and lose body fat. So I hope this video has helped you guys know the things that you should always be doing or 4 more things that you should always be doing when applying your intermittent fasting regimen for the day. Hopefully this video has helped you guys, and of course, as always, I want to thank my patrons from my Patreon, and I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here.